today's fluency lesson, I'm working with my brother Hunter. He's going to be my 4th grade student, and we're going to go over the parts of fluency, which is prosody and chunking. Those are the two things we're going to kind of go over today. Chunking, to start off, is when you're reading like a sentence and you maybe come across a comma in a sentence, and you have to pause at that comma and then continue reading. So kind of maybe an example like, the light was green, comma, then the light turned red. So you pause right there. And maybe you have a whole paragraph where you'll be reading and you have to stop at each sentence. That's called chunking. But also sometimes in chunking, there may be some moments where you have to do some prosody, where you're like changing the sound of your voice or the speed of it, or just to make things a little more interesting. And you'll have to kind of chunk that way. So you may have to pause a few more times in the sentence than you would normally if you're just reading to yourself, okay? So to demonstrate prosody and chunking, I'll be reading Father's New Game. And we have a picture of the father with his 2 daughters. It was a cold winter day, too cold for Mary and Susan to go outside. They wanted something interesting to do. They went to their father and asked if he would take them to a movie. He said, "I'm sorry, girls. Someone is coming to see why the washer isn't working. If you play by yourselves for a while, I'll think of a new game for you. But you must promise to stay in your room until I call you." "Okay," said Mary and Susan. Father wrote notes on pieces of paper and left them around the house. Each note gave a clue as to where to find the next note. Just as the person came to look at the washer, Father called to them, "Mary, Susan, you can come out now." Then he went into the basement. Mary and Susan came out of their room. They didn't see anything to play with. They thought that their father had forgotten to think of a new game for them to play. Then Susan noticed a piece of paper on the floor. She picked it up and read it aloud. "I'm cold, but I give off heat. I'm light when I'm open, but dark when I'm closed. What am I? Open me and you'll find the next clue." The girls walked around their house thinking. They came into the kitchen and looked around. "That's it," yelled Mary. Oh, there it is, okay. The refrigerator. She opened the door and found the next clue taped to the inside of the door. The girls were off again in search of the next clue. After an hour, they had found 5 clues. The person who had fixed the washer was just leaving. As Susan found the last clue, it read, "Nice job, girls. Let's go to a movie." So that's when they figured out that it's the refrigerator. Unfortunately, I couldn't read that because I wasn't. Anyways, so now we're going to go on to the 1-minute repeated reading strategy, where I'm going to have my student, he's going to read this text called Early Railroads, and we numbered each line with how many words are in it, and he's going to try to read as far down as he can before the minute is up, or as many words as he can before the minute is up, and then we're going to keep track of how many words he reads, and then we'll probably mark out the miscues that he makes, so the mistakes that he might make in the words. So I'm going to need that out of my book. And then I have one more activity for him. So, what's it called? Early Railroads. So, I'm going to time you on my Apple Watch. And then, where did I put my marker? Oh, you have it. Okay, thanks. So now we're going to time it. Oh, you got a timer? Awesome. Thanks. So we'll do 1 minute. And then when the timer goes off, we will stop, count how many words, and then we'll do it for a second and third time. Okay? So you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Railroads began as rails laid down on a road. The rails were made of wood topped with iron. Horses pulled carts running along the rail. The rails were smoother than the roads, so the horses could pull the carts faster than they could pulling wagons over roads. Then Peter Cooper got a better idea. Why not develop a steam engine or locomotive to pull the carts? He believed a steam engine would be able to pull heavier loads faster than horses could. In 1830, Cooper built a steam-powered engine. It was a small weighted It was small and weighed barely a ton. Because of its small size, it became known as the Tom Thumb, who was a tiny hero in the Old English stories. Cooper wanted to let people know about his new machine, so he advertised a race between the Tom Thumb and a gray horse. On an August day that year, the locomotive and the gray horse lined up side by side. Cooper stood at the controls of the Tom Thumb. The race began, and the first horse pulled ahead. Then the train picked up speed, and as soon as it was neck and neck with the horse, then the Tom Thumb pulled ahead, and greater cheer went up.
Okay, so I'd say you probably stopped it ahead. That was really good though. So let's stop that. So let's find out where ahead is. Right here. Is that the right ahead that I'm looking at? Let's see. And a great cheer went up. Oh, right here. Okay, so we'll just put a little mark right there. So 202, so 1099. So that would be 198 words, and you only had, I think, 2 spots where you might have mistaken a word for another word. So we'll count those off as well. So that'll be 196 correct words in 1 minute. Okay, so let's try it for a second time. If you could open up your timer again. Oh. Nice. Okay, so 1 minute again. So this time you should probably get a few more words just because you're a little more familiar with the text, okay? So ready? Whenever you're ready.
Railroads began as rails lay down the road. The rails were made of wood topped with iron. Horses pulled carts along the rails. The rails were smoother than the road, so the horses could pull the carts faster than they could pulling wagons over roads. Then Peter Cooper got a better idea. Why not develop a steam engine or a locomotive to pull the carts? He believed a steam engine would be able to pull heavier loads faster than horses could. In 1830, Cooper built a steam-powered engine. It was small and weighed barely a ton. Because of its small size, it became known as the Tom Thumb, who was a tiny hero in English stories. Cooper wanted to let people know about his new machine, so he advertised a race between the Tom Thumb and Gray Horse. On an August day that year, the locomotive and the Gray Horse lined up side by side. Cooper stood at the controls of the Tom Thumb. The race began. At first, the horse pulled ahead. Then the train picked up speed, and as soon as it was neck and neck, the horse, then Tom Thumb pulled ahead, and a great cheer went up. But suddenly, a safety valve in the engine broke. The locomotive slowed and then fell behind the horse. Although Tom Thumb lost the race, steam engines would soon take over.
Okay, so we'll stop at wood, which should be right here. So although Tom, yeah, awesome. Nice, that was like really good. Okay, so we got to 236, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31. And that time I don't think you had any mistakes except for maybe adding or taking away a couple words. So no like word mistakes that we would have to fix. So what did I say? 131? 231? 231. Nice. Okay, let's see if you can read the whole passage in 1 minute. Okay? Let's try it. Actually, you're supposed to be a 4th grader, but it's alright.
4th grader.
So, whenever you're ready.
Alright, railroads began as rails laid down the roads. The rails were made of wood topped with iron. Horses pulled carts running along the rails. The rails were smoother than the roads, so the horses could pull the carts faster than they could pulling wagons over roads. Then Peter Cooper got a better idea. Why not develop a steam engine or a locomotive to pull the carts? He believed a steam engine would be able to pull heavier loads faster than the horses could. In 1830, Cooper built a steam-powered engine. It was small and weighed barely a ton. Because of its small size, it became known as the Tom Thumb, who was a tiny hero in the Old English stories. Cooper wanted to let people know about his new machine, so he advertised a race between the Tom Thumb and a Gray Horse. On an August day that year, the locomotive and the Gray Horse lined up side by side. Cooper stood at the controls of the Tom Thumb. The race began, and the first horse pulled ahead. And then the train picked up speed, and as soon as it was neck and neck with the horse, then the Tom Thumb pulled ahead, and a great cheer went up. But suddenly a safety valve in the engine broke. The locomotive slowed and then fell behind the horse. Although the Tom Thumb lost the race, steam engines would soon take over for horses. Over the next 20 years, railroads replaced canals as the easiest and cheapest way to travel. By 1840, the United States.
Okay, so 1840. Nice, that was super close. Okay, so here's your phone back. We're finished with that. So this time we got 264. So 64, 63, 62, 61, 60, 59, 58, 57, 56. So 255. Nice. So I if you can see it from over there, but he managed to increase each time by almost 20 to 40 words each time. So here is about 40 or 35, and here, or 29 or something like that. 35, and here he increased by about 20, so, or over 20 words. So he did really good, and it sounded like you didn't really use much prosody just because you were trying to read fast and try to get all those words in. But your chunking was really good, even though you're reading fast too. So there wasn't a lot of moments where you didn't stop at the sentence. So great job on that. I'm actually really proud of you. So next, we're gonna do kind of a fun activity, and it's called theater reading. And my student is gonna read aloud, and he's gonna read with a certain kind of voice. And today we chose to plug our nose like we're going underwater, okay? So to kind of demonstrate that, I'll go from My Father's New Game, and I'll read first couple of sentences. So, it was a cold winter day, too cold for Mary and Susan to go outside. They wanted something interesting to do. So, obviously it's really funny. We're going to try to hold it together and have him read this whole passage like that, focusing on chunking correctly. So stop pausing at those, or taking a breath at those periods, pausing at the commas, and reading in good chunks where you can take a breath so you're not reading a whole sentence, trying to hold your breath the whole time. So we want to have fluid breathing. So this time I'm going to let him take over and try to read through this without both of us cracking up and laughing. So bear with us. So whenever you're ready, we're reading like we're underwater.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Whales and fish both live in the water, but they are different in many ways. Whales are large animals that live in the water. Even though whales live in water, they must come to the top of the water to get air. When they come to the top of the water, whales breathe in air through a hole in the top of their heads. At the same time they blow out old air. Whales don't get air like fish. Fish take in air from the water. Mother whales give birth to live whales. The baby whale must come to the top of the water right away for air. The baby drinks milk from its mother for about a year. Then it finds its own food. Fish have babies in different ways. Most mother fish lay eggs. The babies are born when the eggs hatch. Right after they are born, the baby fish must find their own food. Whales and fish are alike in some ways too. Whales and fish have flippers on their sides. They also have fins on their tails. Flippers and fins help whales and fish swim. Fins move and push the water away.
Good. So that was kind of challenging trying to read it in a voice and also read the words, because you're kind of focused on how your voice sounds and then how you're reading the words. But you did a great job of doing the chunking. There weren't a lot of chances for you to do the prosody, but I could kind of hear it as you were reading. It just kind of sounded like you were comprehending what you were reading while you were reading it, so we like to hear that fluctuation in the sound of your voice. Great job. And it kind of sounded like you were underwater. I feel like my nose is starting to run from when I tried to do mine. But great job. Do you have any questions, concerns, or comments?
I'm supposed to.
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being my student, Hunter.
Yep.
You did great.
Thanks, Miss McMurphy.